Oneohtrix Point Never, sometimes known as OPN, is a working name for a guy called Daniel Lopatin, who's an experimental electronic music producer from Massachusetts. He's particularly known for experimental reinterpretations of various genres. His first album was released in 2007, and he has released 8 more since.
Hi, my name is Dan. So this is a request review. It was requested by Killer Ranger, and they requested it because they knew that I go for ambient music sometimes. This is now the third Oneohtrix Point Never album that I have reviewed on this channel. Yeah, here we go in a second, but I just want to explain that most of the reviews on this channel are of the 3,000 greatest albums of all time, according to a list created at a site called Acclaim Music, a list for which I have a reasonable amount of confidence. If you want to know why, go and have a look. And occasionally I step off that list and get distracted by something, and request reviews are one of those. If you want to request a review yourself, just leave a comment on any of the videos on the channel and I should see it. And usually they go in my list, and it usually takes me a couple of months or so to get around to them. I'm not absolutely guaranteeing that I will review everything that I'm requested to. I want to leave myself an out just in case of all sorts of things that could happen. All right, so let's get into this album. So it's a compilation album that was released in 2009, and it collects together early synth-based recordings, mostly. There is one track that has a guitar in it, which is on the version I listened to, the last track. These date back to as far back as 2003, but significantly they collect together 3 limited run albums, which were Betrayed in the Octagon, which was 2007, Zones Without People, which was 2009, and Russian Mind, which was 2009. And they're all tracks that were released under the Oneohtrix Point Never name. Now, there are various configurations for this album. So I listened to mostly to the original 2009 edition, which was a cut-down version of the version that I could get hold of, which was a later version, but it does mean it was missing one track, which is a track called Actual Air, so I have not heard that track. I would say it's mostly ambient and electronic music. It veers sometimes into what I think of as being dark ambient, but I might not be correct in my terminology, but non-musical ambient. So there are bits that are more sound effect than music, and sometimes these things are mixed together. It's relatively simple stuff. There's arpeggiators being used, there's pads, there's not a lot that you could call tunes here. It's definitely electronic in the main. Sometimes that's quite soft sounds, including pad sounds. I've mentioned those already. Sometimes there's more harsh sounds, like that sound more like a strident 80s analog synth or something like that. And there's quite a lot of this. So there's a lot of tracks. Mostly it's shorter than you might imagine for ambient music. There are some longer tracks, but many of the tracks are around kind of 3-4 minute line. And it feels very much like an exploration of different musical ideas. Although some of them, as I say, are longer and more developed and kind of work through, some of them are just, let's do the idea, let's play around with it for a bit, and then let's stop. It's a compilation album, and so it has a bit of that feel that compilation albums often have, which is that it feels like it jumps about a bit. It doesn't have the kind of structured feel that some albums have. So I don't know if the tracks that have come from these limited edition albums are done in the order that they appeared in those albums. There may be, there may not be, but it feels like it kind of chops and changes quite a bit. which is often an issue with compilation albums, is that the structure of the album is less of a concern than it often is with studio albums. So even the shortest version of this album feels, which is the one that I listened to, feels like that it goes on forever. It's long. It's 2 CDs long. I can't remember the actual running time. And it feels like it's more useful as a reference album than as an album to listen to. Maybe listening to the individual limited run albums would make more sense than this. There was obviously some reason why those were done as limited run and why this was done as a compilation. I don't know what that reasoning was. Having said that, I did enjoy it a reasonable amount. I wouldn't say it's the best ambient that I've heard, but it's far from the worst. It was certainly pleasant. And it wasn't bad music to kind of have on in the background whilst I do something else, which is one of the things I like to do with ambient music. Particularly, I do programming and things like that, and I find that some background music often actually helps me concentrate in that. And this is the kind of music that does. It would have been better if it had more long-term flow through the album, as I say. Not bad. I think, as is the case sometimes, is the sort of album where I'm going to do 2 clips of music, because I always do, one at the start and the credits, one at the end of the credits. But those 2 clips aren't going to give you anywhere near a full feel for what this album's like. So if you're intrigued, go and listen to it yourself. Find it and give it a listen. And if you do, please let me know what you think. But if you already know the album, please let me know what you think. Do leave a comment and tell me what score you'd give this album. And that's it from me for now.